हेलो फ्रेंड्स, केजी क्लासेस में आपका स्वागत है। आज हम आपको पैराडाइज लॉस्ट के बाय जॉन मिल्टन के एक्सप्लेनेशन के बारे में बताएंगे। एक्सप्लेनेशन है दाऊ फ्रॉम से लेकर गॉड टू मैन, लाइंस 19 to 26 इम्पोर्टेंट है। दी लाइंस फ्रॉम ए पार्ट ऑफ द इन्वोकेशन एट द ओपनिंग ऑफ मिल्टन्स ग्रेट एपिक पोएम पैराडाइज लॉस्ट बुक फर्स्ट। In keeping with the epic tradition, Milton invokes the help of the heavenly muse to enable him to complete his adventurous song, which intends to undertake a theme unattempted yet in prose or rhyme, in order to explore the affairs of heaven and hell. Milton wants to take a lofty flight, for which he seeks the help of the muse from her holy seats like mountain herbs or Sinai or Sian. Milton, being a great genius, is not satisfied with an invocation to the heavenly muse only. His task is not an ordinary one, therefore he also seeks the aid of the Holy Spirit, which together with God and Christ makes the Trinity. Milton seeks the aspiration of Holy Spirit for his subject pertains to the secret of heaven, with which the Holy Spirit is well acquainted. This Spirit was present at the time of creation of the universe, when her mighty and massive wings were outspread. She sat on the vast and vacant quies to fill it with life, as a dove hatches its egg by sitting over them. Therefore, the Holy Spirit is the fittest creature to unfold to the poet all the secrets of creation. Further, the poet calls upon this Spirit to throw light on whatever is unknown to him, and also to elevate whatever is low and base in him. As his subject is sublime, he needs enlightenment and elevation of soul. Only then he would be able to prove the wisdom of God's rule on the world and justify his actions to man. Milton wants to exhaust that men should accept God's base and action instead of lamenting over their lot. All consequences which befall human beings are of their own making. Therefore, they should be prepared to accept their consequences, because it is through acceptance and suffering patiently that they can hope for redemption. God is never unjust, even though his punishment is heavy, but his mercy is greater. It is not by challenging God but by bravely accepting his punishment that man can hope to get God's mercy and grace. Milton was a Puritan. These lines therefore sufficiently reveal his staunch faith in God. His spirit of dedication and submission to God is apparent. Milton was of the view of his adventurous song could reach completion only through devout prayer to that eternal Spirit which alone can enrich a man with spiritual thoughts. Besides this, the last lines are autobiographical. Milton was blind when he wrote these lines. Moreover, it may also be noted that the poem begins in hell, a region of utter darkness. Hence, a spiritual illumination is self-explanatory. नेक्स्ट है येट नॉट से लेकर थ्रोन, लाइन्स 94 to 104 इम्पोर्टेंट है। These lines have been taken from the first speech of Saturn in Milton's great epic poem Paradise Lost, Book First. When Saturn awakes from stupor in hell, he looks all round him to find Beelzebub rolling in the fiery waves by his side. Saturn pays a tribute to Beelzebub's fidelity, that he is with him in misery with the same loyalty as he had always been with him in heaven. Saturn also admits that God had proved to be stronger than him by virtue of his mighty weapon of thunder. But in this speech, Saturn declares that he is not going to give up his contact with God. He and his angels have been flung down from heaven into hell. When they are to dwell in eternal torment and misery, it is no light punishment that they are suffering. Satan is, however, aware that still worse punishment may be inflicted on them, yet he does not regret this his revolt, and though he has lost part of his angelic brightness, his mind remains unchanged. He still defies the autocracy of God. In this contest, a great number of angels followed him. They choose him as their leader, for they also wanted to oppose the tyranny of God. They opposed God's power with their equal power in the battle that followed. They were able to shake the foundation of his throne. The result of the battle is still undecided. Saturn intends to renew his contest soon. In Saturn's speech is God pictured as an absolute and arbitrary sovereign. Milton's sympathies seem to be divided between God and Saturn in the first two books. The speeches it puts in the mouth of Saturn are the speeches of one groaning under tyranny and at last rising to break the chains. Saturn seems to have genius grievance against God. The Son of God was created later, yet he was promoted over Saturn's head. It is on this issue that he raised the rebellion. नेक्स्ट है वार्ड 2 से लेकर फ्रॉम में लाइन्स 105 to 111 इम्पॉर्टेंट है. These lines are extracted from the first speech of Saturn in Milton's great epic poem Paradise Lost, Book First. After awakening from the stupor, Saturn finds Beelzebub rolling in the lake of fire by his side. Saturn says that in spite of his defeat in the battle, God has not achieved complete victory over him. He still retains with him his fixed mind. Since he will remains unconquered, Saturn questions whether the battle has been conclusive at all. The battle has not been able to crush his spirit and weaken his resolve to pursue his eternal revenge upon and hatred to God. He asks if he can be said to have been overcome when he has such a spirit of revenge, such undying hate and such indomitable courage. God can claim a complete victory only if he crushes Saturn's indomitable spirit, which is not possible. Saturn means to say that as long as his identity unchanged, God's power and wrath cannot certainly rob him of his glory. These lines are significant as they form the finest part of Saturn's speeches. Saturn asserts the superiority of mind to physical suffering. He tries to prove that his defeat is a sort of victory because it has strengthened his courage and firm will. Saturn's unyielding courage and unconquerable spirit have deserved him universal praise, but since these attributes are directed to the pursuit of revenge and endless hatred, they cannot be regarded as noble. Some critics find an autobiographical note in these words of Saturn: the Puritans were defeated at the hands of the Royalists at the Restoration. Consequently, Milton, like his creation Saturn, might have felt that the Puritans were not still fully subdued, and therefore he must have consoled himself that way. But Milton certainly did not intend to glorify Saturn. नेक्स्ट है फॉलन चेरफ से लेकर रेसिस्ट तक लाइंस 157 to 162 इम्पोर्टेंट है. These lines are extracted from Saturn's speech in Milton's great epic poem Paradise Lost, Book 1. Saturn maintains that his will remains unconquered so that he is able to pursue his revenge upon God. But Beelzebub, who seems to be more of a realist, argues that God may have left their will and strength unimpaired, not for nothing, but that may go through the severest penalty that God might further inflict upon them. Saturn, being the leader of the fallen angels, is upset by the tone and trend of Beelzebub's speech. He responds quickly so that he might restore faith and courage in Beelzebub. Therefore, addressing Beelzebub as fallen cherub, he says that weakness, whether in action or in suffering, makes one miserable. Saturn sets forth his purpose and plan of action against God. He makes it clear to Beelzebub that he is firmly resolved upon doing no good but finding joy in doing evil. That way he would be acting against the will of God, who is their opponent. It is evident that evil will be Satan's chief weapon against God. By now Satan has realized that open war is out of question. Henceforth the war between God and Satan will be the war between God and evil. It may also be noted here that Milton here highlights the theological ideas of the irreconcilable opposition between good and evil. God stands for absolute goodness, while Satan becomes an embodiment of unrevealed evil. नेक्स्ट है फेयरवेल से लेकर हेल ऑफ हेवन, लाइन्स 249 to 255 इम्पोर्टेंट है. These lines have been extracted from the speech of Saturn in Milton's great epic poem Paradise Lost, Book 1. When Saturn finds that there is no escape from hell, he accepts his lot with full patience and fortitude. He knows that it is for God to decide what is right and what is wrong. Like a practical politician, he admits the superiority of God and attributes to him arbitrary will and power. In fact, he makes the best of the worst situation. Saturn bids farewell to the blissful heaven, though with a heavy heart, and welcomes hell and all its horrors. He is at least consoled by the thought that he is the sole occupant of hell. In a way, its ruler, which he always wants to be. He feels that it is the mind that makes the situation happy or reverse. It is the attitude of mind that matters, neither place nor time. The mind is always free from external circumstances. Saturn means to say that happiness or misery is not conditioned by circumstances in which one lives, but the state of one's mind. If the mind is so conditioned, it is capable of experiencing heavenly bliss even in hell, but it can also convert heavenly blessing into hellish miseries. Saturn here expresses the Stoic doctrine according to which the mind is above pains and sorrows. In fact, it is the moral greatness of an individual that makes him the master of the situation. But these lines should better be studied in the light of the conflict in the mind of Saturn. Earlier, Saturn had lamented over the dismal and woeful conditions of hell, but now he says that he does not mind that he is in hell, but that he can rise above his surroundings. It is but an attempt to reconcile himself to his present situation. नेक्स्ट है हेयर बी से लेकर इन हेवन, लाइन्स 261 to 263 वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट है. These lines have been extracted from Saturn's speech in Milton's great epic poem Paradise Lost, Book 1. Saturn, who is ambitious, feels satisfied that after all he is the sole occupant of hell. He knows that there is no escape for him from hell. Therefore, he accepts his lot with full patience and fortitude. He also feels that mind is always free from the influences of circumstances. Saturn knows that hell is not so good as a place that God will grudge his possession of it. He means that God will not interfere with him in hell. Therefore, Saturn feels quite secure in hell. Moreover, the greater point of satisfaction for Saturn is that here in hell he would get his ambition of being a ruler fulfilled. Saturn is ambitious of reigning as a lord, since he could not be the ruler of hell. In his opinion, to reign is worth ambition, and it is quite immaterial whether one region in heaven or in hell. These lines reveal the keynote of Saturn's character. Ambition. He would light in hell as its ruler than be a slave to God in heaven. The sentiments of Saturn expresses considerably Milton's own rebellious spirit and pride. The lines, which have become proverbial, are generally quoted as an example of Milton's love of freedom and independence. Here, Milton is seen as a child of Renaissance. नेक्स्ट है फोर स्पिरिट से लेकर फुलफिल, लाइन्स 423 to 431 इम्पॉर्टेंट है. These lines have been extracted from Milton's great epic poem Paradise Lost, Book 1. Milton refers to the various names by which the fallen angels came to be known and worshipped in the heathen world. Milton tells that these devils also disguised themselves as heathen gods and goddesses known by the names of Balaam and Ashtaroth, male and female respectively. These devils could assume any sex they like, for they were made of heavenly matter, which was unmixed with any gross material substance like flesh and bones. They might become male or female or even both at once whenever they so wished. Their substance made their bodies as supple as to have no hindrance from joint or limb. Therefore, bodies did not need the support of the fragile bones which are so needed to support the body of unwieldy human flesh. These angels, therefore, could assume any shape they liked. They could contrast or expand. They could put on any color, becomes bright or dark, and they possessed the power to do what they intended. Milton means to say that the angels did good deeds for their friends and harmed them when they were unfriendly. नेक्स्ट है Hence forsaker his foe. Lines 643 to 649 important है. These lines have been extracted from Milton's great epic Paradise Lost book first. Satan convinces his followers that it was not he but the concealed strength of God that was responsible for their rout. So far he is concerned, he never gave them wrong advices, nor did he avoid any personal danger. In fact, till the time of their defeat, they did not have any idea of the real strength of God. Satan convinces his followers that they are now in a better position to face God. They can now fight against God and with greater advantage, for they now know how powerful God is, and they know also their own relative strength. Therefore, it would be unwise on their part to challenge such a powerful adversary as God to an open bar. But if a bar is forced upon them, they would not fear it, but fight it bravely. Therefore, the better course of action open to them is to work secretly and plan treacherously. Satan means to say that what they could not achieve by strength, they are going to achieve by craft. In this way, they would make God realize that force is not the only factor in achieving victories. God will know that the victor who succeeded with the help of sheer force achieved only partial victory over his enemy. Satan implies that the greatest victor are those who win the hearts of those whom they have conquered. Here Satan is seen arguing quite plausibly. It is true that the real victory is of the heart and not of the body. But Satan believes that he can defeat God by his cunningness, and fraud is a mere fallacy. For how can he hope to achieve a complete victory over God by his duplicity? नेक्स्ट है लेट नन से लेकर परफॉर्म. Lines 609 to 699 important है. These lines which have been extracted from Milton's great epic Paradise Lost book first show the poet's dislike for gold and riches. Milton tells that it was Mammon who first lured men with love of gold. It would have been better had gold remained undiscovered, for it is the source of evils in the world. Milton advises people not to admire gold, for it is the product of hell. It is a precious metal, but a curse to mankind. It generates innumerable evils. However, Milton, being a lover of art and beauty, admires the skill and speed with which the devils constructed the pandemonium. He said that men are very proud of their magnificent blinding buildings constructed by them. With a great sense of wonder and pride, they describe the temple of Belus and the hanging gardens of Babylon, and also the works of Egyptian Pharaoh who made pyramids, which are one of the seven wonders of the world. But those who boast of these human achievements should know that the magnificent building constructed by the devils far surpassed all human achievements. They accomplished the task in no time, for which innumerable human beings must have labored hard for as long as an age, and even in that time they could have hardly finished it. Here Milton refers to two greatest human achievements, the most famous works of Babylon, the capital of Babylonia, situated on the Euphrates, where the temple of Belus, the supreme deity, the royal palace, and the hanging gardens. The Pharaoh of Egypt constructed huge pyramids, about which it is said that 3,66,006 men were employed for 20 years for building the Great Pyramid. These pyramids were constructed over the tombs of king and date back to 2800 to 1700 BC. नेक्स्ट है एज 20 से लेकर स्टेट अफेयर्स, लाइन 768 टू 775 इम्पोर्टेंट है. दिस एपिक सिमिलीस ग्रेट occurs in Milton's great epic Paradise Lost. Book first is used by Milton to compare the vast multitude of the fallen angels to a swarm of innumerable bees gathered on a beehive when pandemonium was built. The fallen angels were ordered to assemble in it. Soon the whole space was thronged, for the multitude of the angels was the hugest ever imaginable. Here Milton compares the huge multitude of fallen angels to the throng of the innumerable bees in summer when the sun passes through Taurus or Bull, the second of the zodiacal constellations. At this time the bees swarm together around their hives. Some of the bees fly to and fro among flowers fresh and dew to gather honey. Some settle upon the smooth flat piece of timber on which the hive rests to consider their public affairs. The hive built from straw resembles a fortified town, and the plank greased with fresh wax on which the bees meet and converse has the appearance of the suburb of a fortified town. The simile of the bees is quite apt, for it has close point of resemblance between the bees and fallen angels. The angels are as numerous as bees. The angels' hiss or rustling wings is very much like the hissing sound created by flying bees. Their assembly in pandemonium is likened to assembly of bees on the smooth plank. However, the simile of the bees is of great antiquity. First it appears in Homer and then in Virgil, but Milton's smile is more vivid and suggestive in this regard the views of Falconer may be noted here. Milton has finally imitated Homer's simile and improved it with the addition of the last three lines or on the smooth plank etc., which gives the greater closeness to his smile. Thanks, best of luck.